Chapter 1884. Everyone thought. Master Ju said, His Royal Highness may care about Feng Wu, but he's not going to offend one of the most powerful masters on this continent for a bed-warming maid. You think too highly of your boss Jun. Feng Sun yelled, Are you an idiot? Who told you that Xiao Wu was only a bed-warming maid? Xiao Wu is his future wife. Those words were like a thunderclap in everyone's ears. Ran Mil was so astonished that all the color drained from her face. His future wife? Master Ju stared at Feng Sun. That made Feng Sun's threat very real. Jun Linyuan was simply too powerful and frightening to be an enemy. Wasn't the engagement annulled? Ran Mil blurted out. She immediately realized that she had said the wrong thing. Because it would show how much attention she paid to Jun Linyuan, but at that moment, she was pretending to be someone who couldn't be bothered to talk to Jun Linyuan. However, everyone else was too shocked by Feng Sun's news to notice her strange reaction. Since Feng Sun had said it, he decided to tell the whole truth. He smirked. Everyone thought that Boss Jun terminated the marriage arrangement when Feng Wu lost her ability. Boss Jun isn't such a petty person. He would never do that for such a silly reason. That's just preposterous. No one noticed Ranmil's clenched fists and the way she bit her lower lip. Sapphiro asked in frustration, So, His Royal Highness has been engaged this whole time? He never cancelled the agreement? Feng Wu has been His Royal Highness's fiancé for the past 5 years? Resting his hands on his waist, Feng Sun said proudly, Yes, of course. All the women out there throw themselves at Boss Jun, and they all want to become the Crown Prince's wife. Ha! They have no idea that the candidate for that position has never changed. Ranmil said, I don't think a lot of people know that. Feng Sun said, Of course they don't. Why do you think Boss Jun has been protecting Feng Wu the whole time? Because she's his future wife. I've seen a lot of crazy women over the years, but... He then praised Ranmil. Of all these women, you're the most special one. Other women all jump at Boss Jun, but you... Feng Sun nodded at Ranmil. You're the only one who's not in love with Boss Jun. Was that supposed to be a compliment? Ranmil couldn't bring herself to smile anymore. Feng Wu was the only person she could think about now. If she had only thought about killing Feng Wu earlier, she knew she had to do it for real now, and as soon as possible. Where is she? Feng Sun shifted his attention back to Master Ju. Master Ju only snorted. He held the hilt of his sword and stepped back. After you. He wanted Feng Sun to choose the section to enter first. Eager to find Feng Wu, Feng Sun was going to pick one, when Xian Yi nudged him with his elbow and gave him a warning look. Feng Sun and Xian Yi grew up together and could understand each other very well. That look was all that was needed. Feng Sun threw a dirty look at Master Ju and remained where he was. Ranmil pretended to be confused. Young Lord Feng, why won't you pick one? Chapter 1885. She still looks so innocent. Feng Sun snorted. I'll wait until your Master Ju makes his choice. Ranmil's stomach lurched, and she had a bad feeling. But, that's simple. Crossing his arms, Feng Sun gave Master Ju a half-smile. He's trying to kill Xiao Wu, isn't he? I'll stay with him and see how he's going to do that. Without knowing where Feng Wu was, that was the best way to stop Master Ju from killing her. Ranmil had wanted to come up with a plan with Master Ju to kill Feng Wu after Feng Sun entered the hall, but that wouldn't happen now. However, Ranmil smirked. While Feng Sun and Xian Yi guarded Master Ju, no one had any idea that Ranmil wanted to kill Feng Wu as well. To them, she was still as innocent and kind as she always appeared to be. She smiled and said, Fine. My dear young lords, you can stay here with my senior master. I'm off. She gave Master Ju a meaningful look as she spoke. Master Ju stared at the third plate. Ranmil immediately took the hint. Master Ju had been trying to deduce which section Feng Wu had entered, and he noticed that the third plate was a little dimmer than the other 8. One couldn't tell with the naked eye, but it was detectable with spiritual essence. Ranmil smiled a little. I'll just pick one then. Wish me good luck. The next second she entered the third section. Sister, I'm coming with you. Sapphiro had been observing her sister the entire time. The two of them grew up together, and Sapphiro had been tricked many times by Ranmil's innocent facade. That was why she had been observing Ranmil. As expected, she saw the interaction between Ranmil and Master Ju. She realized that Ranmil wanted to kill Feng Wu, and she didn't want to miss that. Therefore, when Ranmil teleported into the third section, Sapphiro followed her. Feng Sun stared at Master Ju. Which one are you going to pick? We'll keep you company. Master Ju reasoned in his head. Ranmil was a spiritual lord powerful enough to be the lord of a kingdom, whereas Feng Wu was only a level 7 spiritual elder. No matter how smart she was, the best she could do was defeat someone a level higher. She wouldn't stand a chance against Ranmil. Well, there are so many people here. The crowd heard a voice. Feng Sun turned around and frowned. It was none other than the second prince. And he wasn't alone. If Feng Wu were here, she would have jumped to her feet. Because the person next to the second prince was none other than Zhuo Qingxian. Hadn't Feng Wu killed him already? Why was he here? Zhuo Qingxian was a little pale, and he looked grimmer than before. Other than that, he was the same. Master Ju smiled a little. The second prince was Jun Lingyuan's rival, whereas Feng Sun was Jun Lingyuan's man. The enemy of an enemy was a friend. It seemed that he could partner up with the second prince. Chapter 1886, Light of Dantian. Your Royal Highness. Master Ju greeted the second prince first, which was very rare for him. The second prince glanced at Master Ju in surprise, because the proud man had never initiated a conversation ever since he showed up, but now. When he saw Feng Sun, he immediately realized what was going on. Interesting. Very interesting. At the same time, Feng Wu rushed forward as soon as she entered the third section. According to the White Fairy, 999 steps into the third section, she would find what she needed in the third room on the left. The treasure hunt was a difficult task for other people, but because of the White Fairy's tips, she didn't encounter any difficulty at all. Squeak! Feng Wu pushed the door open and was met with a sea of golden light. The translucent light all came from the pure spiritual essence that could solidify one's dantian, which Feng Wu needed the most right now. She was elated. It would be some time before Master Ju and the others got here, so Feng Wu sat down cross-legged, closed her eyes, and concentrated. Soon she started cultivating. The dots of light around her seemed to line up and began to enter Feng Wu's body in turn as she breathed in and out. Usually, it would be very difficult for Feng Wu to obtain these dots, and she had to refine them bit by bit. But here, they were ready to be absorbed. She didn't need to refine them at all. Excited, Feng Wu circulated the light she absorbed through her energy channels. The light then moved to her dantian and began to take effect. Feng Wu's dantian was rapidly being solidified. And the dots of light in the room were disappearing as well. As time went by, they grew fewer and fewer in number. 80%, 50%, 30%. By the time there was only 10% of the light left, Feng Wu's dantian had reached an amazing state. It would be enough even for a spiritual lord. Since this was a rare opportunity, Feng Wu wasn't going to waste any of the light, because she didn't know when she would have such an opportunity again. She sat there and went on absorbing the light. 8%, 5%, 3%. Just then, Feng Wu's eyelashes quivered, and she opened her eyes. Enemies were approaching. Feng Wu held the Ghost King seal tighter, looked at a sealed closet nearby, and smiled. She now realized where the dots of light came from. Right at that moment. Thump. There was a loud thump. The door opened. Sapphiro came in first. Behind her was Ranmil, who looked as pure as a white lotus. Finally, she and Feng Wu met again. Feng Wu, it really is you. Seeing that Feng Wu was all by herself, Sapphiro shook from head to toe with excitement. She had been waiting for this moment for too long. Are you absorbing the light of Dantian? Ranmil stared at Feng Wu with cold eyes. Her eyes turned red when she saw the dots of light floating in the air. Chapter 1887, You're the Pig. The light was known as the Light of Dantian. In the world outside, it was such a rare resource, but now Feng Wu had absorbed so much of it. With a wave of her hand, Ran Mil absorbed the remaining dots of light. While she was digesting the Light of Dantian, Sapphiro walked up to Feng Wu. Crossing her arms, she looked down at Feng Wu, her demeanor utterly arrogant. Hey, isn't it the legendary Princess Feng Wu? Are you all alone now? Sapphiro said mockingly. Feng Wu remained completely unperturbed. You're still so calm, aren't you? Sapphiro crouched down in front of Feng Wu and looked at her as if she were already dead. Feng Wu ignored her. Feng Wu, who gave you the right to be so arrogant now? Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu. Are you really Jun Lingyuan's fiancé? Feng Wu's calm face finally seemed to stir. She frowned and said, That's bullshit. Sapphiro smirked. Are you still trying to keep it from us? Feng Wu, you're such a hypocrite. What? Are you afraid that we'll take His Royal Highness away from you? Feng Wu couldn't be bothered to reply. Sapphiro shoved her. What's that look on your face? You can't be bothered to talk to me? That's right. You're the future wife of His Royal Highness. Of course we're not good enough for you. Feng Wu frowned. I told you already. That's not true. You're his fiancé. Stop denying it. Sapphiro said angrily. Feng Sun said it himself, and Xianyi didn't deny it either. They can't both be lying. Feng Wu frowned even deeper. But our engagement was cancelled. Before she could go on, Sapphiro shoved her again. Feng Sun told us that it was never cancelled. You're still Jun Lingyuan's future wife. Feng Wu stared at her in astonishment. Sapphiro looked at Feng Wu and shook her head. She then turned to Ran Mil and said, Sister, do you see that face? She's such a good actress. She acts as if she doesn't know anything about it. Feng Wu said, I really don't. Sapphiro sneered at Feng Wu and sighed. Feng Wu, to be honest with you, you have a lot of qualities that I like. You're smart, pretty, and resourceful. But do you know what I hate about you the most? You can be such a hypocrite. She pointed at Feng Wu and yelled, I hate it that you said nothing when you knew about your relationship with His Royal Highness. I hate that you never told anyone about how respectable you actually are. You're so fake. If you told us about your relationship with His Royal Highness from the beginning, I would never have tried to do anything to you. But you're just too fake and too good at hiding. Your acting was so believable that I took the risk. So, don't blame me when you're dead. You wanted to play the pig so that you can end up eating the tiger when no one was watching, but as it turned out, you really are the pig. Feng Wu said innocently, You're the pig. Chapter 1888, Clever Feng Wu. I'm not arguing with you. Sapphiro rolled her eyes at Feng Wu. Don't you know you're going to die? Feng Wu looked innocently at Sapphiro and shook her head. No, I don't. Sapphiro smirked and gestured at Ran Mil. I'm not going to kill you, nor am I able to. But from this moment on, she's going to decide if you live or die. Feng Wu glanced at Ran Mil. Sapphiro was right in saying that she wasn't capable enough to be Feng Wu's rival, but Ran Mil was. Meanwhile, Ran Mil had finished absorbing the last of the Light of Dantian. With her naturally innocent face, Ran Mil had always seemed adorable and harmless. She had always left that impression on everyone else. But now that she crossed her hands behind her back and looked down at Feng Wu with eyes filled with hatred. I don't like taking lives. Ran Mil sounded like she feared that killing an ant would dirty her hands. So, do it yourself. Clanged that she tossed a dagger onto the ground next to Feng Wu. Ran Mil was so arrogant that she couldn't be bothered to glance at Feng Wu. It was obvious that she didn't think Feng Wu was her match. Feng Wu stared at Ran Mil and narrowed her eyes. Sapphiro had fallen into Feng Wu's trap before and had learned her lesson. She stepped back all the way to the entrance. The fight was between Ran Mil and Feng Wu, and guarding the door was all that Sapphiro was going to do. You won't do it yourself then? Ran Mil glanced at Feng Wu. Feng Wu smirked. Ran Mil sounded confused. Your dead body will be intact if you take your own life. If I do it, you'll be in pieces. Don't you understand? Feng Wu went on smirking. Ran Mil said scornfully, Why are you making me do it? She looked at her fair hands and sounded a little distressed when she said, When His Royal Highness holds them one day, will he mind that they were once covered with blood? Well, I'll never be able to hold his hands if I don't kill you. Ran Mil seemed to be convincing herself, but she didn't even take out her weapon. She thought so little of Feng Wu. Die. She slowly struck down at Feng Wu. The strike seemed so slow and gentle, but it contained half the power of a spiritual lord. Feng Wu stumbled back. Ran Mil smirked. How dare a woman like that try to compete with her? She didn't even turn around to look, because she was convinced that Feng Wu was going to die. She shook her head at Sapphiro. I've heard about this Wu Qingwan from the Junwo Empire. She's supposed to be as talented as she is beautiful. Only someone like her is good enough to be my rival. As for this woman, she's just an ant. But Sapphiro cried out at that moment. Surprised, Ran Mil turned to look. She immediately frowned. Countless ghosts were flying out of a cabinet. There were at least 1,000 of them. And they were all spiritual elders. Chapter 1889. Clever Feng Wu, 2. One spiritual elder ghost wasn't much of a threat, but when there was a swarm of them, it could be quite troublesome. What about Feng Wu? She remained where she was and smiled brightly. Thousands of ghosts flew past her and charged at Ran Mil. That was clever, but such a petty trick. Ran Mil struck out at the ghosts. Thump, thump, thump. 5 ghosts were immediately struck down. But it didn't intimidate the others, and they kept charging at Ran Mil. Ran Mil smirked. You're not afraid, are you? I'll destroy you all. She wasn't in a rush to kill Feng Wu. Because to her, Feng Wu was dead already, and she didn't believe that Feng Wu could escape. Feng Wu, I'll show you how easily I can kill spiritual elders. Ran Mil deliberately showed off her skills in front of Feng Wu. Thump, thump, thump. Thump, thump, thump. Thousands of ghosts were smashed and kicked away by Ran Mil, turning into dots of light before they disappeared. Eventually, they were all destroyed, and Feng Wu was all by herself again. Ran Mil turned around and glanced at Feng Wu with a smirk on her face. Feng Wu, is that all you can do? Feng Wu smiled. I do have more advanced tricks, but I don't think you can take them. Ran Mil snorted. She looked like a different person from when she was around Feng Sun. Feng Sun saw Ran Mil as an innocent and harmless princess, but now, she couldn't be any more arrogant. Are you sure you can take it? Feng Wu smiled. Ran Mil snorted. You're running out of tricks, aren't you? Feng Wu said, Didn't you notice? Those ghosts were all female. Ran Mil was confused. Feng Wu grinned. So, where did the male ones go? An idea seemed to hit Ran Mil, and she stared at Feng Wu. Enjoy the next part, then. They can't wait to spend some quality time with you. Feng Wu smiled innocently. Ran Mil was shocked when the male ghosts entered the room. Because their eyes were filled with desire. Feng Wu, you! She was furious. The way they looked at her made her feel like she had been stripped of all her clothes. It was very unpleasant. However, she didn't have time to blame Feng Wu anymore. Because a group of male ghosts were slowly approaching her. Go away! Go away! Ran Mil waved her fists. She didn't even dare open her eyes. Because none of them were wearing any clothes. Feng Wu, I'm gonna kill you! Ran Mil finally lost her temper. Of course Feng Wu wouldn't wait there to be killed. While Ran Mil was throwing a tantrum, Feng Wu slipped out a back door. That was close, that she thought to herself. Chapter 1890. Clever Feng Wu 3. If she hadn't found the ghosts hidden in the back room earlier, and if she hadn't had the Ghost King seal that could order the ghosts around, she would have been killed by now. Go, go, go! While Ran Mil was trapped, Feng Wu ran away as fast as she could. Sapphiro noticed as well, but she was also surrounded by the naked ghosts and didn't have the energy to stop Feng Wu. Disappear. All of you. Ranmil's face turned livid, and she was forced to use a skill that she had been hiding from everyone else. She activated the purifying skill, and the entire room seemed to be covered with snow. When the white light dissipated, the ghosts had all disappeared, and Feng Wu was nowhere to be found. Ranmil's face turned very dark. She could see those naked men whenever she closed her eyes. Arg! She felt like throwing up. Feng Wu, I'm going to kill you. Ranmil felt her energy fluctuate inside her, and she had to try very hard to suppress it. I really underestimated her. Ranmil murmured, her voice filled with hatred. You actually know what would work on me. Ranmil's specialty was purification and lifting spells, and she had to avoid all unclean things. If her mind was disturbed, both skills would be affected. Sister, are you all right? Sapphiro only walked out of her hiding corner after all the ghosts disappeared. Ranmil stared at Sapphiro. Her sister was such a good-for-nothing. Sapphiro felt her stomach lurch when she saw the angry look on Ranmil's face. She immediately forced a smile and said, Sister, that Feng Wu is abominable. I can't believe that she got away. Why can she control the ghosts? Why? Ranmil was confused. Cough. Sapphiro knew the answer. Because she had seen Feng Wu manipulating ghosts earlier, and she also knew that Feng Wu could do it because she had the Ghost King seal. What frustrated Sapphiro was that Feng Wu had received that seal from her. Every time she thought about it, Sapphiro wanted to slap herself. What do you know? Ranmil stared at her sister. When Feng Sun and the others were around, Ranmil was very gentle toward her sister. Since the two of them were alone, there was no need for her to pretend anymore. But what? Sapphiro didn't like Feng Wu, but she didn't like Ranmil either. Ranmil would definitely kill her if she told her that she had given Feng Wu the seal by mistake. No, she couldn't tell her sister. That's so strange. Feng Wu is only a mediocre cultivator. How can she control those ghosts? Sapphiro sighed. Useless. Ranmil threw a dirty look at her sister and ignored her completely. In fact, if Ranmil had paid a little more attention to Sapphiro. Chapter 1891. Clever Feng Wu 4. If Ranmil knew from the beginning that Feng Wu had the Ghost King seal, Feng Wu would have much less of a chance at obtaining the seed of the spirit source. When Ranmil wasn't looking, Feng Wu slipped out the back door as soon as she could go. Where do you think you're going? Ranmil ran out of the room and chased after Feng Wu. Feng Wu ran from one room to the next. When she reached a long corridor, she looked over her shoulder and saw that Ranmil was only 1 kilometer away. Ranmil could cover that distance in no time. Thump. Feng Wu pushed a random door open. She hoped that she was lucky enough to find some tough ghosts. Once more, luck seemed to be on her side. Because when she pushed the door open, she found a room full of ghosts, all wearing black armor and holding long sabers. They stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu was elated. These ghosts seemed very well trained and would be more than enough to stop Ranmil. While she studied the ghost warriors, they looked back at her with emotionless faces. Feng Wu grinned, took out the seal, and started stamping the warriors. She had become quite good at it. Those she stamped should follow her orders. However, when Feng Wu stamped the first warrior, he only looked up and gave Feng Wu a bewildered look. The second warrior also stared at Feng Wu in bewilderment when she stamped him, as if he was looking at an idiot. Feng Wu was going to stamp them all, when her stomach lurched. Something wasn't right. She suddenly stood still, stared at a warrior, and ordered him in her mind, "You hit your own head." The warrior stood where he was and gave Feng Wu a strange look. Feng Wu. She looked from the Ghost King's seal to the ghosts and wondered why they wouldn't follow her orders. Why won't you follow my orders? Doesn't my Ghost King's seal work on you? Confused, Feng Wu scratched her head. Are you stupid? The warrior in the middle asked coldly. Feng Wu noticed that he wore the armor of a general, while the others were dressed like common soldiers. Feng Wu stared at him. The general found Feng Wu's question idiotic. Poor human. Since you're going to die, I'll tell you. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. The general said, your Ghost King seal can only order the White Legion around. We're the Black Robe Legion. Feng Wu. White Legion and Black Robe Legion. She looked down at her Ghost King seal and saw that the ghost was right. Only the White Fairy's side had lit up, indicating that Feng Wu had gained her recognition, whereas the other two sides remained dark. That was to say, it wouldn't work on the other two legions. What now? Feng Wu felt rather awkward. She wondered if she should back out of the room now. Just then, there was a loud bang. Chapter 1892. Clever Feng Wu 5. Feng Wu had closed the thick bronze door behind her, but Ran Mil kicked it open. The door flew off and fell at the general's feet. The general was furious. Here was the greatest defense. Ran Mil's angry face appeared in the empty doorway. But she was obviously dazed by the ghost warriors. Without thinking, she immediately thought that they were Feng Wu's soldiers. Feng Wu reacted quickly. Help! She rushed toward Ran Mil. Ran Mil was stunned. She had no idea what Feng Wu was playing at. However, before she could react, the Legion had surrounded her. Thump, thump, thump. They immediately broke into a fight. With how clever Ran Mil was, she immediately saw that Feng Wu was using her. Feng Wu, stop right there. She wanted to catch Feng Wu right there and then. But that wasn't going to happen. As soon as Feng Wu saw that things were getting out of control, she hid in a corner. Thump, thump, thump. It was a fierce battle. Ran Mil tried to reason with the general, but the general already felt offended and saw her as an enemy. There was no way that he would let her go. All hell broke loose. A mist of blood filled the room. While they were fighting, what was Feng Wu doing? Her first reaction was to run as far away from Ran Mil as possible, but Ran Mil had blocked the front door, and going there would only get Feng Wu killed. Behind her were only solid walls. Luckily, the ghost warriors all jumped at Ran Mil and ignored Feng Wu. Feng Wu curled up in a corner and racked her brain. Purify! Ran Mil activated her skill again. It was very effective. Once she activated it, dozens of ghost warriors were annihilated. But the skill had its shortcoming as well. It cost a lot of spiritual essence. After activating the skill twice, her face became very pale, and she only had less than half of her spiritual essence left. But there were still a lot of ghost warriors. As soon as Ran Mil stopped, they closed in like a swarm of ants. Therefore, Ran Mil had to keep using the skill. Purify! 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 Her face turned even paler as she used the skill. Feng Wu was secretly elated to see Ran Mil being drained of spiritual essence, but as the ghost warriors fell, she also felt uneasy. She had to find a way out. She turned her attention to the solid walls and activated her spiritual essence. Suddenly, ding! She felt a pain in her head, as if someone had just punched her. Here. She found a strange spot on the wall. It looked and felt the same as everywhere else, but there was something different. She tried to press down, but she realized that she didn't have enough spiritual essence to do so. That was to say, although she had found the door, she couldn't get in because she wasn't a spiritual lord yet. There's treasure on the other side. Little Phoenix suddenly stuck out its head and said. Chapter 1893. Clever Feng Wu 6. Feng Wu could faintly sense that as well, so she spread out her earth attribute, and, it really is the guardian of the earth. Feng Wu grabbed Little Phoenix in excitement. The White Fairy said that it was hidden here, and she was right. Almost missed it. Feng Wu knew that the guardian of the earth was on the other side, and she had found the secret entrance, but because she hadn't become a spiritual lord yet, she couldn't open it. That was awkward. She looked at Little Phoenix. Little Phoenix shrugged. I'm not a spiritual lord either. After that, Feng Wu and Little Phoenix looked at Ran Mil in unison. The general of the Black Robe Legion was a ghost, so he didn't count. That meant that Ran Mil was the only one here who could open that door. How likely would it be for Ran Mil to agree to open that door for her? Feng Wu shook her head inwardly. Ran Mil would definitely kill her first. Therefore that she had to trick her. You want to kill me because of Jun Linyuan? Well, I'm sorry to inform you, but I'm the one Jun Linyuan loves. No matter how hard you try, he's never going to fall in love with you. Feng Wu knew what Ran Mil cared about most, so she used it to hurt her. And she was right. As soon as she said that, Ran Mil, who had been purifying the ghosts, immediately shifted her attention to Feng Wu. But the ghost general stopped her from getting closer. Ran Mil struck out forcibly in Feng Wu's direction. It contained all her strength. The entire room seemed to shake with it. How arrogant! The ghost general struck down at Ran Mil's shoulder. Ran Mil flew backward. Meanwhile, Feng Wu watched as Ran Mil struck in her direction and dodged at the last moment. She had calculated the angle and the position. Therefore, when Ran Mil's strike arrived, Feng Wu dodged in time, and Ran Mil's strike landed where Feng Wu had been standing. It hit the hidden door dead on. Crack! With Ran Mil's help, the door that Feng Wu couldn't open because of her cultivation level slowly slid open. Ran Mil knocked into the wall and fell to the ground. The pain made her break into a cold sweat. Meanwhile, Feng Wu waved happily at Ran Mil. Thank you for opening the door for me. After that, Feng Wu disappeared behind the door. Ran Mil's mouth fell open. That's the spiritual lord's door. Only a spiritual lord can open it. The general was quite querulous. Seeing that Ran Mil was stunned, he explained to her what had happened. Only a spiritual lord. Ran Mil stared at her right hand. That was to say, Feng Wu couldn't get in on her own, but because of that strike, Ran Mil had opened the door for her. To Ran Mil's frustration, she could sense the treasure on the other side. Ran Mil was much more sensitive to treasures than normal people. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to guess the correct lattices all the time back in the treasure hall. Chapter 1894. Clever Feng Wu, 7. That's, Ran Mil's stomach lurched. That familiar energy had to be from the guardian of the earth. Her master had given her specific instructions and even gave her a map of this place. The only requirement was that she had to find the guardian of the earth. It was a technique with group attack skills. And it was the dream skill of all mages of the earth attribute. Without thinking, Ran Mil rushed toward the open door. But the ghost general reached out and grabbed her arm. Ran Mil yelled at him, "Are you deaf? Didn't you hear? I'm not on the same team as that woman. She's my enemy." The general still wouldn't let her go. Ran Mil stomped her foot in frustration. That was the guardian of the earth that she had been dreaming of. The first chapter had been taken, so she had to get the second chapter. Otherwise, her master would kill her. But no matter how hard she struggled, the general just wouldn't let go. "Hey, that woman is going after the treasure. Aren't you worried?" Ran Mil tried to persuade him. The general shook his head. "Someone will take it. It makes no difference who it is." Ran Mil said, "Let go of me then. I'll take it." The general said decisively, "No." Ran Mil asked, "Why not?" The general said, "Fight me." Ran Mil asked, "Can I fight you after I take the treasure?" The general frowned and wouldn't be persuaded. "You fight me." Ran Mil said, "Go fight Feng Wu. I have things to do." The general snorted. "No, you fight me." Ran Mil tried to shake off his hand. "I don't have the time. I won't fight you. Let go of me." When Ran Mil finally got rid of the general, she rushed toward the door. But the general then caught her by the waist. Ran Mil shouted, "Let go of me." The general threw Ran Mil to the ground, but Ran Mil jumped to her feet and tried to dash off again. But the general caught Ran Mil in time and threw her back down. This series of actions was repeated several times until Ran Mil became desperate. Her spiritual essence was drained, and her forehead was covered with sweat. "Why are you after me? Why not Feng Wu? Why?" This was so unfair. The general actually answered her. "She's too weak. Your capability is just about right. I can kill her with one strike. Where's the fun in that? But you're different. Although you're slightly weaker than me, you're good enough to fight me. Ranmil didn't know what to say. Was it her fault that she was too capable? After that, the general stopped playing nice. He dragged Ranmil back and smashed her to the ground. Again. Ranmil didn't know what to say. Was this general a retard? Did he think that she was playing with him? Why would he ignore Feng Wu but throw her around like a punching bag? Chapter 1895. Master the Skill 1. Ranmil thought that she was going to explode. But the general was more capable than her and unbelievably stubborn. There was nothing she could do but get thrown around like a sandbag. Sapphiro was originally behind Ranmil, but when she saw how miserable Ranmil's situation was, she ditched her without hesitation. Feng Wu found the second chapter of The Guardian of the Earth. Seeing the drawings on the wall, Feng Wu sat down without hesitation and studied them. She then practiced each one in turn. The fourth stance of The Guardian of the Earth. Ground control plus dazzle. The fifth stance. Ground control plus speed reduction. The sixth stance. Ground control plus freeze. The more Feng Wu learned, the more astonished she was. This was such an amazing technique. She only needed to activate ground control when facing her enemies. With the dazzling, freezing, and speed reduction effects, no one of her level would be able to defeat her. Feng Wu was so excited that she almost jumped to her feet. She had to fight back her excitement and went on practicing. She knew very well that the Ghost General wouldn't be able to delay Ranmil for very long. That was because the general was as inflexible as a machine, while Ranmil was very clever. After she got over her initial rage, she would be able to calm down and find a way to defeat the general. Feng Wu herself had figured out at least 2 ways to do that. Therefore, she had to work on the 3 stances as quickly as she could. Once she was done, the paintings on the wall would disappear. Even if Ranmil broke in then, she wouldn't be able to learn anything. Calm down, calm down. Taking a deep breath, Feng Wu sat down cross-legged and was soon in cultivation mode. Spiritual essence ran rampant inside her. Ground control plus dazzle. Done. Ground control plus speed reduction. Done. Ground control plus freeze. Done. That was so fast. Even Feng Wu herself was amazed. She couldn't help but check her dantian. Her dantian was shining brightly. Not only was it more solid than before, it was also several times larger. But it was almost empty. Feng Wu frowned. Earlier, the White Fairy told her that to make fast progress after getting the seed of the spirit source, she had to be prepared first. First of all, her dantian had to be big and solid enough, which she had achieved. After that, her dantian needed to be filled to the brim with spiritual liquid. After that, she could plant the seed in her dantian once she obtained it. That way, it would grow rapidly. The faster it grew, the more capable she would become. Therefore, Feng Wu knew that her top priority was to replenish her spiritual essence. That could be easily achieved if the White Fairy were here. Where was she supposed to find spiritual essence now? The main palace, said Little Phoenix. From what I remember, the formation core of such a place is usually in the main palace, and that's also where the spiritual essence is the densest. Let's go to the main palace, then. Feng Wu clenched her fists. I have to fill my dantian. Otherwise, even if I find the seed of the spirit source, I won't be able to make any progress. Plus, she looked at the Ghost King's seal in her hand. The White Fairy's side is lit up. I need to convince the Black Robe Ghost King and Green Scarf Ghost King now. Feng Wu then took out a map. Little Phoenix stared at her. Where did you get that map? Chapter 1896. Master the Skill 2. Feng Wu grinned. From Ranmil, obviously. The map was derived from the turtle diagram, which Feng Wu had let Feng Sun find in the treasure hall. As it turned out, Feng Sun was a bit too generous. Ranmil barely needed to use any tricks before he handed the map to her. But Feng Wu was much better. If she could give it to Feng Sun, she could take it back as well. Ranmil still had no idea that Feng Wu had taken the map which Ranmil had swindled from Feng Sun. Feng Wu unfolded the map, which covered the entire tomb area. She focused on the area around Universe Hall. Universe Hall consisted of 9 sections arranged into a 3x3 square. Section 5 at the center was the main one, and the other 8 were subsections. Usually, it's not possible to enter the main hall from a subsection. However, Feng Wu looked at the map and smiled. However, the wall with the Guardian of the Earth drawings is the entrance to the main halls. To enter Section 5, they would have to destroy the second chapter of the Guardian of the Earth. Right at that moment, whoosh, there was the sound of a heavy blow behind them. Oh no! Ranmil had arrived. Cracking ground. Feng Wu activated all her spiritual energy and directed it at the drawings on the wall. The ferocious spiritual energy began to wipe out the drawings. When Ranmil finally got rid of the Ghost General and charged in, she saw that 2/3 of the drawings had been destroyed. The Guardian of the Earth. Seeing this, Ranmil was dazed. She then became furious. She finally realized what had happened, and glared at Feng Wu. Die! Ranmil looked like she had lost her mind. She reached out toward Feng Wu. Golden light poured out of her fingertips, and the entire room seemed to stir with it. Shit! Ground control. Dazzle. Speed reduction. Freeze. Feng Wu used all 3 stances. She was much weaker than Ranmil, but those 3 stances were quite effective. Ranmil was taken by surprise and was frozen for a second. And that was enough for Feng Wu. Run! The next moment, Feng Wu broke the wall with the drawings. As expected, there was a long corridor behind it. Feng Wu jumped in and ran down the corridor as fast as she could manage. She could run quite far in 1 second. A second later, Ranmil could move freely again. Seeing the burning drawings and how Feng Wu had disappeared, Ranmil was so angry that blue veins popped on her forehead. Feng Wu! I underestimated you and gave you the chance to run away. But that won't happen again. Ranmil didn't chase Feng Wu right away, but tried to save the drawings first. But after she put out the fire, only 1/4 of the drawings were left. Moreover, that Feng Wu was so cunning. Most people would start a fire at the lower corners, but she started the fire in the center. Chapter 1897, Master the Skill, 3. Therefore, that although there was 1/4 of the drawings left, it contained nothing useful and most of it was blank. Feng Wu. I'm gonna kill you. Ranmil was so mad that she thought she was going to lose her mind. She had been delayed because she tried to save the drawings, which turned out to be completely useless. Infuriated, she threw all the drawings to the ground. The Guardian of the Earth had been destroyed. What was she supposed to tell her master now? All of a sudden, Ranmil's stomach lurched. Feng Wu. The stances Feng Wu used just then, weren't they from the Guardian of the Earth? That meant Feng Wu that she had learned the technique. The thought made Ranmil want to scream. She had tried everything she could to get the Guardian of the Earth, but all her efforts had gone to waste. Feng Wu, on the other hand, got to walk away with the grand prize. So, Ranmil smirked. Feng Wu, you've learned the Guardian of the Earth, haven't you? You're going to spit it out. Ranmil no longer needed to search for the Guardian of the Earth. All she needed to do was go after Feng Wu. Whoosh! She dashed off. The next second, she had also jumped behind the wall into the corridor. She had read on the map earlier that it was the way to the main hall. But as soon as she entered the corridor, she saw a crossroad. She was baffled. Which direction should she go now? Ranmil wanted to check the map, but when she reached into her chest pocket, she felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her head went blank. It wasn't there. This couldn't be happening. She checked her chest pocket, her sleeves, and everywhere else that the map might be, but it wasn't there. Where's my map? She panicked a little. She tried very hard to remember what happened. It had been safely tucked away in her chest pocket, and there was no way she could have lost it. The only possibility was she had fought against Feng Wu. Ranmil didn't know what to say. She finally realized how Feng Wu found that passageway. She had stolen the map. Feng Wu. Ran Mil thought that she had overestimated Feng Wu, but now she realized that she had underestimated her. Despite her poor capability, she was able to get herself out of trouble every single time. That Feng Wu was something. By then, Ran Mil became even more worried when it came to Feng Wu. After jumping over the wall, Feng Wu followed the map and headed right for the central hall. The central hall had a pretty name. Star River Hall. Whoosh! Feng Wu ripped open a layer of spiritual essence with her bare hands and jumped into Star River Hall. Thump! She was as nimble as a monkey. Who's there? Someone cried out in an angry voice. Feng Wu was shocked when she saw who it was. She stared at the man. The man stared back at her. It was as if all the other people in the hall didn't exist, and these two people were the only ones there. Feng Wu. Zhuo Qingxian. Both saw hatred in each other's eyes. Aren't you dead already? Feng Wu narrowed her eyes when she saw that it was Zhuo Qingxian. Chapter 1898. Master the Skill 4. She remembered clearly that she had killed Zhuo Qingxian by stabbing him in the back of his neck. But why was Zhuo Qingxian here now? Zhuo Qingxian stared back at her. You want me dead, don't you? Ha! Feng Wu, you didn't know that I had a substitute talisman, did you? Zhuo Qingxian stared at Feng Wu. Since you didn't kill me, it's your turn to die. After that, he drew out the long sword from behind him. He then activated his spiritual essence and struck at Feng Wu. Feng Wu felt so frustrated. What a pity! She should have destroyed Zhuo Qingxian's corpse when she had the chance. That way, even with the substitute talisman, he couldn't be resuscitated. That taught Feng Wu a lesson. Rumble! Zhuo Qingxian hated Feng Wu to the bone. Purple light wrapped around his sword, and his spiritual essence surged like a tidal wave. Die! Zhuo Qingxian wouldn't give Feng Wu any chance. He used his most powerful skill right away. Zhuo Qingxian was a spiritual lord, and Feng Wu was only a spiritual elder. There was no way she could withstand him. Feng Wu wanted to flee. But Zhuo Qingxian had obviously expected it. Thus, his sword moved so fast it was like a net had been woven around Feng Wu. Feng Wu was trapped. She frowned. Since she couldn't get away, she had to face him. The chance of her surviving was less than 1%. Ground control. Feng Wu used the 6 stances she had just learned. She spared no effort and activated all her spiritual energy. Fallen Star Swordplay. Phoenix Dance. She was using all the skills she knew. She had to fend him off, or she would be doomed. Thump, thump, thump. While Feng Wu was doing everything she could, Zhuo Qingxian smirked. You're as petty as an ant. Who gave you the courage to face me? Zhuo Qingxian sneered at her. Die! Zhuo Qingxian aimed his sword at Feng Wu's throat and charged at her like a streak of lightning. He was going to kill her with this strike. Crack! Feng Wu's protective shield looked like glass in comparison. The next second, it completely shattered. Crack! Her shield was gone. Die now! Zhuo Qingxian guffawed, sending his sword further forward. Feng Wu was immediately under a lot of pressure. She watched as the malicious sword came at her throat. It was getting closer and closer. 3 inches, 2 inches, 1 inch. It was about to cut her skin open, but there was nothing she could do. Haha, how does it feel to be so close to death? Zhuo Qingxian asked in a mocking tone. He felt very proud of himself. If he wanted to kill Feng Wu right away, all he needed to do was push his sword a little further. But now, he was enjoying the moment. Just then, whoosh, a sword pierced Zhuo Qingxian from behind. Its speed was unbelievable. Even Zhuo Qingxian didn't have time to react. It was obviously a sword master, because the strike was accurate and fierce. Chapter 1899. Master the Skill 5. Zhuo Qingxian turned around and saw a teenager behind him. It was a handsome young man with big bright eyes. The others were used to seeing his smiling face, but the look on his face was very serious now. Feng Sun. Blood poured out of Zhuo Qingxian's mouth. He stared at Feng Sun in disbelief. He had never thought Feng Sun would kill him. How dare he? Zhuo Qingxian wasn't the only one who was shocked. The second prince hadn't seen it coming either. Ooh! Both men cried out in unison. Feng Sun then drew back his sword. My purple sun sword has yet to taste blood, and you just offered yourself to me. Good. Feng Sun stared at Zhuo Qingxian with a murderous look in his eyes. The purple sun was unbelievably sharp, and it pierced Zhuo Qingxian's heart from behind. Once Feng Sun pulled it out, blood covered Zhuo Qingxian's chest. Why are you doing this? He stared at Feng Sun in disbelief. Why do you think? Because you tried to kill Feng Wu, obviously. Feng Sun found the question idiotic. Do you know who she is? Who is she? She's my sister, Feng Sun said coldly. The others only knew him as the lively and easygoing teenager, but when he stopped smiling, he was as intimidating as Jun Linyuan. Aren't you afraid of my family? Zhuo Qingxian pressed a hand to his chest. Feng Sun had planned to kill him from the very beginning. He had made sure that the sword would go through Zhuo Qingxian's heart. Zhuo Qingxian knew that he was going to die. No one could save him now. Feng Sun said decisively, I'll worry about your family later. You wanted to kill Xiao Wu, so I had to kill you first. Zhuo Qingxian held his chest and kept coughing out blood. He couldn't understand it. Feng Wu and Feng Sun weren't real siblings, so why did he do this for Feng Wu? Why would he offend the Zhuo family for her? But he wouldn't know the answer in this lifetime. Just then, two more people charged in through the gap Feng Wu had torn open. It was Ran Mil and Sapphiro. Ran Mil immediately saw Zhuo Qingxian, who had dropped dead on the ground. Ah! In front of the teenagers, Ran Mil put her innocent mask back on. She looked frightened and completely baffled. What happened? Young Master Zhuo. While she was pretending to be frightened, Ran Mil didn't stop looking around the place to figure out the current situation. Zhuo Qingxian held a sword in his right hand and had a resentful look on his face. Blood dripped from the purple sun sword in Feng Sun's hand. The blood drops tainted the ground. What more was there to say? Ran Mil could tell that Feng Sun had killed Zhuo Qingxian. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes when she saw Ran Mil. Ran Mil narrowed her eyes as well. They looked like two hunters running into each other in a dark wood, and both had raised their guns. The second prince was confronting Feng Sun, and they could break into a fight at any moment. Just then. Chapter 1900, Master the Skill 6. They heard steady footsteps coming in their direction. As soon as the teenager showed up, things turned around because it was Jun Linyuan. He seemed to carry 1,000 beams of light with him, and was so splendid that everyone else was merely part of the background. He was the one blessed with all merits. Boss Jun. Seeing Jun Linyuan, Feng Sun, who had raised his guard and was combat-ready, immediately switched to his usual mode. He ran toward Jun Linyuan like a happy puppy. Boss Jun. I killed Zhuo Qingxian. He had killed Zhuo Qingxian without giving it much thought. Once his rage subsided, he became a little scared. After all, offending one of the 9 major clans would bring him a lot of trouble. Feng Sun was still wondering what to do when Jun Linyuan showed up like a savior. Boss Jun. Boss Jun. Feng Sun ran toward him and yelled, I killed Zhuo Qingxian. What should I do now? Jun Linyuan wasn't alone. The mysterious steward Feng was with him as usual. As soon as Jun Linyuan stopped moving, Feng took out an armchair out of nowhere and put it behind Jun Linyuan. Once the crown prince sat down, Feng handed him a warm towel. Jun Linyuan took the towel and slowly wiped each finger in turn. His fingers were well-proportioned and as fair as white jade. From the very beginning, Jun Linyuan never gave anyone else a look. He ignored them all. But the others had no problem with his demeanor, as if they expected he would be like this. Once the crown prince elegantly wiped his hands clean, he tossed it back to Feng, his face still emotionless. Only then did he look up. He glanced at each face in turn. No one dared to meet his intense gaze. Sapphiro wasn't bold enough. nor was Ran Mil. Even the second prince, who was openly against Jun Linyuan, couldn't withstand his gaze. The teenager looked completely unapproachable. How terrifying! Jun Linyuan's arrival made the others completely forget how tense the atmosphere had been earlier. They didn't even dare breathe heavily, let alone speak. You killed him? The crown prince was as proud as the emperor himself. As soon as he spoke, the temperatures seemed to drop. Feng Sun had grown up with Jun Linyuan and was used to his aura. As a result, he wasn't affected much. I didn't want to mess with him at first, but he was outrageous. He wanted to kill Xiao Wu. Feng Sun began to tell his boss Jun what happened. If I was 1 second late, Zhou Qingxian would have cut Xiao Wu's throat. If I hadn't done what I did, Xiao Wu would be a corpse on the ground by now. So, Boss Jun, didn't I do the right thing? Feng Sun clenched his fists, trying to make it Jun Linyuan's responsibility. Whoosh! All eyes were on Jun Linyuan. They all wanted to hear Jun Linyuan's answer, especially Ran Mil. She might seem indifferent to what was going on, but she was actually watching Jun Linyuan carefully. Before Jun Linyuan could speak, the person who came in after him cried out in surprise. Chapter 1901. Untitled. Wow! It was the 7th prince that he had been fighting on his own after entering this giant tomb. After running into Jun Linyuan, he immediately decided to follow him around. He had remained quiet until that he saw Feng Wu. Oh! The 7th prince suddenly jumped out from behind Jun Linyuan, pointed a finger at Feng Wu, and started yelling. He was too excited to utter a coherent sentence. The sight of Jun Linyuan, the 7th prince, gave Feng Wu a headache. Out of all the places, she just had to run into him here. What a disaster! While Feng Wu was troubled by Jun Linyuan's arrival, Jun Linyuan turned to his big brother and shouted, "Brother! Brother! It's her! It's her!" Feng Sun stared at the 7th prince helplessly. What do you mean it's her? What did Xiao Wu do to you? He still didn't realize what was going on, but the clever crown prince did. Jun Linyuan's eyes seemed to turn a shade darker. But Jun Linyuan didn't notice. He pointed at Feng Wu and told Jun Linyuan, Brother, she's the woman I'm in love with. She's the only woman I want to marry." Oh no, that was the greatest gossip of all time. All eyes were on Feng Wu. Meanwhile, Feng Lu and her lot were outside the door, and they all rushed in when they heard this. Jun Linyuan, Feng Sun, Xian Yi, Jun Linyuan, and the second prince. Feng Wu, Sapphiro, Ran Mil, and Master Ju. Feng Lu, Feng Sang, Feng Yiran, Dugu Yamo, and Dugu Mingxi. Everyone had gathered here in Star River Hall. And what they heard sounded like a thunderclap in their ears, baffling them. What did the 7th prince say? He likes Feng Wu, and she's the only one he wants to marry. Since when does the 7th prince know Feng Wu? Why are they so familiar with each other? Isn't Feng Wu His Royal Highness's bedwarming maid? Isn't His Royal Highness supposed to care about this girl a lot? Everyone was talking at the same time. Ran Mil's eyes flickered. Jun Linyuan was completely absorbed in his excitement and couldn't hear what the others were saying. He rushed to Feng Wu's side, took her hands, and went down on one knee. He then asked excitedly, "My goddess, will you marry me?" Everyone was astonished. Sapphiro covered her mouth, fearing that she might scream. How terrifying! So, Feng Wu and the 7th prince are a couple. Since this was a great chance to slander Feng Wu, of course they wouldn't miss it. Hence, everyone started making comments. Feng Wu could sense the intense gaze on her. It was so terrifying. It seemed to be tearing her to pieces. Feng Wu's stomach lurched, and she tried to throw off Jun Linyuan's hands. "Hey, let go of me." But Jun Linyuan had finally found his goddess, so of course he wouldn't let her go. Holding Feng Wu's hands, he wanted to pour out his feelings. Chapter 1902, Untitled. It's all my fault. I'm so sorry. If I knew you were Feng Wu, I would have found you earlier, and you wouldn't have been alone for so long. From now on, I'll protect you and look after you. I won't let anyone pick on you again, so, Miss Feng Wu, will you marry me? The look in Jun Linyun's shining eyes was very sincere. A prince of the empire was proposing to her on one knee. Other girls would have gone wild with joy, but Feng Wu. She couldn't get far away enough from the prince. No, I won't. Let go of me now. She tried to pull her hands back. But Jun Linyun simply wouldn't let go. Feng Wu grew very anxious. But why? The prince wouldn't drop the subject and looked rather confused. I'm a prince of the empire and Jun Linyuan's favorite younger brother. I have my own residence, I'm the owner of 3 cities, and I have no wife or concubine. I've searched everywhere for you. Why won't you accept me? The more he spoke, the sadder he became. He was usually an optimistic person, but now, tears filled his big bright eyes. One couldn't help but feel sympathy for him. Feng Wu. She hadn't done a thing, but he made it look like she had abandoned him. Why was this happening? Before she could explain herself, Sapphiro spoke in a seemingly casual tone. Why did I hear that Miss Feng Wu is His Royal Highness's fiancée? Immediately, all eyes were on Sapphiro. Sapphiro blamed it on Feng Sun right away. Pointing at him, she said, "It wasn't from me. Young Lord Feng said so earlier." Whoosh! All eyes were on Feng Sun now. Especially Feng Lu and Feng Yuran, who were all staring at Feng Sun. Feng Sun scratched his head. Things were getting a little complicated. He was equally baffled. He had no idea that the goddess Jun Linyun had been searching for was Feng Wu. Young Lord Feng, you must be joking. Wasn't the marriage arrangement cancelled already? Feng Lu stared at Feng Sun nervously. She couldn't accept it. Feng Yuran said, "It's true. My younger sister was engaged to His Royal Highness once, but that was annulled later. I guess Your Royal Highness didn't explain it clearly enough, and Sapphiro misunderstood." Sapphiro shook his head. No, it wasn't like that. Young Lord Feng made it very clear that Feng Wu and His Royal Highness are still engaged. Young Lord Feng, am I right? Feng Sun grew impatient at their bickering. No, the engagement is still valid and little Feng Wu is still Boss Jun's fiancé. What? You have a problem with that? Those words astonished everyone. Even Feng Wu herself was shocked. She threw a dirty look at Feng Sun. Don't be ridiculous. Feng Sun patted her on the shoulder and told her the truth. The two of you are still engaged. Feng Wu said, No, we're not. Feng Sun said, Then tell me this. Did you retrieve the token your family gave His Royal Highness? Chapter 1903, Untitled. Feng Wu stared at Jun Linyuan. Didn't you say that you can't remember where you put the dark jade? So, the Crown Prince didn't return the token to the Feng clan immediately. All eyes were on the Crown Prince. Jun Linyuan glanced around the room with a ferocious look in his eyes. As everyone watched expectantly, the Crown Prince rose to his feet. So, did His Royal Highness cancel the engagement or not? Everyone was eager to hear the answer. Feng stood there deferentially with his head lowered as usual, but deep down he was feeling anxious for Jun Linyuan. Your Royal Highness, this is a great opportunity to prove your love for her. Use it well. Jun Linyuan steadily walked up to Feng Wu, stopped, and looked down at her. The look in his eyes was cold and detached, and his elegant features looked like they had been sculpted. The majestic air he gave off was so intimidating that the others didn't dare meet his gaze, but he was still unbelievably attractive. Feng Wu opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. She really wanted to know if the engagement had been annulled. The others were all waiting for the answer. The 7th prince was very perplexed. However, just then the Crown Prince cast a stern look at Feng Wu and said, You've disappointed me. He left after that. He looked so proud and unapproachable from behind that no one dared to make a sound. They could only watch him leave. Gosh. Feng watched in resignation as his young master walked away. His Royal Highness. He should have used this opportunity to express his feelings for the girl, not walk away. By doing so, he was handing the opportunity to his brother. But Feng couldn't say anything, because his young master was too proud. He would do exactly the opposite. Feng gave Feng Wu an apologetic look and a nod before following Jun Linyuan away. As soon as the two of them left, the room became very noisy. Wow! The pressure Jun Linyuan gave them was incredible. Therefore, as soon as he left, they felt a burden lifted from their shoulders. Sapphira was the first to react. Because she saw Feng Wu as her rival in love, she was naturally hostile toward her. Because of that, she was also the first to attack Feng Wu. Well, someone can stop bragging now. Are you still going to say that the engagement isn't cancelled? His Royal Highness doesn't seem to agree with you. Feng Lu let out a breath of relief. I knew it. The engagement was no longer valid 5 years ago. There's no way that Feng Wu is still the Crown Prince's future wife. You guys should have believed me. Feng Wu frowned. Was the engagement cancelled or not? She hoped it was cancelled. Otherwise, she would have to find a way to do it. It would bring her a lot of trouble. Just then, she heard a beep in her head. Trial 7. During the winter hunt, make Jun Linyuan 100% angry, accomplished. What? Feng Wu wanted to say something, but the message almost made her jump. What the heck? She recalled the 12 trials of love. Chapter 1904, Untitled. She had to finish all the trials, because only then would her beautiful master wake up again. He said last time that he wouldn't wake up for such a short period. Only this time, Feng Wu had been stuck on the 7th trial because things hadn't been going well. Because the trial required her to make Jun Linyuan 100% angry, which she had no idea how to achieve. She had tried to set Jun Linyuan off many times, but to her frustration, she was only able to make him a little upset. Soon, not only wouldn't he feel angry, he would also become rather pleased. Feng Wu had been so frustrated. But just then she had achieved that goal. How was that even possible? But the message had to be true. She had completed the 7th trial. What was going on? Nothing really happened. Feng Wu scratched her head and felt utterly confused. Ding! Trial 8. Make Jun Linyuan openly acknowledge your engagement. Feng Wu heard the next message. Her eyes widened as she stared into empty space. Sapphira was standing somewhere ahead of Feng Wu and was now slandering Feng Wu in front of the others. The look in Feng Wu's eyes made her stomach lurch, and she almost jumped to her feet. But Feng Wu didn't hear anything Sapphira said, because she was still thinking about the message. Trial 8. Make Jun Linyuan openly acknowledge your engagement. By openly acknowledge your engagement, that meant that the engagement actually still existed. What? Feng Wu was dumbfounded. Xiao Wu? Xiao Wu? Seeing how baffled Feng Wu looked, Feng Sun shook her by the shoulder. Feng Wu stared at him as if she had just been struck by lightning. She asked in a dumbfounded voice, Tell me, am I really still engaged to him? Feng Sun nodded happily. That's right. Xiao Wu, don't be afraid. You're the future wife of the Crown Prince. So what if I've killed Zhuo Qingxian? No one will dare touch you. He raised his eyebrows at Feng Wu like a little show-off. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. She didn't like the sound of that at all. I don't believe it. Jun Linyuan finally recovered from his astonishment, and he yelled angrily, I don't believe it. Feng Wu almost rolled her eyes at him. Please mind your own business. She wished that the 7th prince would just go away. But the 7th prince didn't seem to hear her. Holding Feng Wu by her shoulders, he said solemnly, My brother doesn't like you. He's fond of Zhuo Qingluan. Xiao Wu, don't worry. I'll make the engagement go away. Wait for me. He dashed off after that. He was going to reason with his brother. Wao Feng Sun had almost convinced Feng Lu and the others, but Jun Linyuan's words reminded them of something. The girl His Royal Highness liked was Zhuo Qingluan, the genius teenage girl. The royal family would also choose her, the sacred lady of the Firmament Palace. Chapter 1905, Untitled. Feng Wu, you're delusional. A bed-warming maid is as far as you can go. His Royal Highness's future wife? You're nothing compared with Zhuo Qingluan. Feng Wu rolled her eyes. I never wanted to marry him, okay? Heh. No other girl in the room would believe her. In fact, no one in the empire would. Feng Wu, do you know what levels Qingwan is at now? I received the information just before I entered this place. Duguyamo stared at Feng Wu with a ferocious look in her eyes. She's reached the peak of the spiritual lord stage. Feng Lu's eyes widened. A peak spiritual lord? Then she's as capable as Master Ju. Duguyamo smirked. I'm afraid she's even better than Master Ju. Feng Lu said, well, Feng Wu is even further below Miss Swathen. Duguyamo gave Feng Wu a contemptuous glance. She's not just far below Qingwan. She's not even worthy enough to clean Qingwan's shoes. That's enough. Feng Sun snapped. I'll hit a woman when I need to. Say one more nasty thing about Xiao Wu and I'll choke you to death. You, Duguyamo glared at him. Feng Sun smirked. I've killed Zhuo Qingxian. Do you think I'll think twice before killing you? Wu. Duguyamo was still angry, but she didn't dare offend Feng Sun anymore. You're nuts. Duguyamo clenched her fists. Glancing at Zhuo Qingxian's corpse on the ground, she snorted. Just wait and see. I hear that Qingwan is coming back soon. I can't wait to see you tell her what you did. Zhuo Qingwan is coming back? Feng Sang, who had been silent this whole time, suddenly asked. Yes, said Duguyamo proudly. As far as I know, Qingwan has come out of seclusion and is traveling around to train herself. In less than 6 months, she'll be back at the imperial capital. Why? Feng Sang asked. Why 6 months? Because, Duguyamo suddenly smiled. It's a secret. Since she wouldn't tell them, the others found it inappropriate to ask, despite their curiosity. After that, Duguyamo said to Feng Wu in a mocking tone, when she gets back, you'll see how petty you are. Qingwan will make you ashamed of yourself. Feng Wu frowned. She didn't care about Duguyamo, so her words didn't affect her, but that had Zhuo Qingwan reached the peak of the spiritual lord stage already. It seemed that Zhuo Qingwan was making equally rapid progress. And she was going to be back in 6 months. Feng Wu clenched her fists in her sleeves and was desperate to become stronger. It was as if her blood was boiling. One day, she would defeat Zhuo Qingwan, her archenemy, in front of everyone. Xiao Wu, Feng Sun was concerned. Are you all right? Feng Wu nodded. You look tired. He then lent Feng Wu a hand. Feng Wu was speechless. After separating from the White Fairy, she fought almost to death against Zhuo Qingxian, got chased around by Master Ju and Sapphiro, and had almost been killed by the revived Zhuo Qingxian. Chapter 1906, Untitled. Then there was the 7th prince, and Jun Linyuan was angry at her for no reason. Feng Wu felt that she had just had the most unlucky day. Everyone was turning against her when she didn't do anything. I'm fine. Feng Wu barely had any strength left to speak. She felt drained both mentally and physically. Feng Sun patted her on the shoulder. A short distance away, Feng Lu and Duguyamo were whispering together. She must have gotten scared when she heard that Qingwan is coming back. Feng Lu said, of course she's scared. When Sister Qingwan comes back, she'll be nothing. Huh, she can't be arrogant for long. I hope Sister Qingwan comes back soon. Feng Sun wanted to smack them. But the whispers disappeared as soon as he turned around. Feng Sun was rendered speechless. Talk about Xiao Wu behind her back again and I'll use my purple sun sword on you. Feng Sun then struck at a statue in front of him. The statue was sliced into half and fell apart. Feng Lu was speechless. So was Duguyamo. They lowered their heads and ground their teeth, but didn't dare utter another word. Feng Sun snorted. What a bunch of bullies. Let's go. I don't want to see them. Feng Sun was going to take Feng Wu away, but at that moment that crunched at the open door of the hall made a strange sound. Everyone turned their heads involuntarily. The bronze door closed at a tremendous speed. Shit. Feng Sun tried to make a run for it with Feng Wu, but he was too late. Thump. The door slammed shut when he was almost at the doorway. It nearly caught his purple sun sword. What's going on? Feng Sun jabbed the door with his sword in frustration. It might look like a normal bronze door, but when Feng Sun poked his sword at it, he finally realized how solid it was. Why did it close so suddenly? Did someone trigger it? Feng Wu frowned. Look at that statue's face. It wasn't smiling like that, was it? The second prince cried out. Immediately, everyone looked at the statue that had been sliced into half by Feng Sun. It was true. It had been a statue of a monk with closed eyes and a serious look on its face, but now, its eyes were still closed, but there was a strange smile on its face. That smile is so creepy. He looked so satisfied. What a cunning smile. Everyone read the smile differently, but one thing was for sure. The statue of the monk no longer looked kind at all. What's going on? Why do I feel that the light has gone dark? You're not alone. I feel that it's getting darker, too. Hey, do you feel that the temperature is dropping? It's not just that. The coldness is seeping into my bones. I feel a chill going down my spine. My legs are going to give way. Oh God. What's happening? What have we run into? A lot of people gave Feng Sun accusing looks. If he hadn't damaged the statue, they wouldn't be trapped here. Chapter 1907. Untitled. But because of how intimidating Feng Sun had been earlier, no one dared to accuse him out loud. Feng Sun was confused as well that if Jun Linyuan had been here, he could simply do whatever Boss Jun told him to do. But Jun Linyuan wasn't here, so Feng Sun was on his own. Xiao Wu, don't be afraid. I'm here for you. Feng Sun patted his chest. I'll protect you. Don't worry. Feng Wu sighed inwardly. Somehow, Feng Sun never brought her any good luck. By then, it was so dark that they couldn't even see their fingers in front of their faces. Feng Sun held Feng Wu's hand, for fear of losing her. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. What are you doing? Feng Wu then realized that a rope had been tied around her waist, and she turned to Feng Sun in confusion. Feng Sun said happily, I don't want to lose you in the dark, so I tied a rope around your waist, and the other end is tied to my waistband. How's that? Aren't I clever? Feng Wu stared at Feng Sun. Feng Sun's big eyes flickered in the dark as he looked forward to Feng Wu's compliment. Feng Wu said, You're so childish. Feng Sun said, I'm trying to protect you. Feng Wu said, It's so ugly. Untie me. Feng Sun refused. I can't do that. What if someone kills you in the dark? Boss Jun will kill me for that. I can't take the risk. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. The others all laughed inwardly. If His Royal Highness really cared about Feng Wu so much, why would he leave her behind? Ah! Just then they heard someone cry out in the dark. Feng Lu? Feng Lu, is that you? What happened? Someone grabbed my foot. Ah! Feng Lu shrieked. I can't kick it away. It's pulling my skirt. Help! Just then, someone else near Feng Lu screamed as well. Ah! It ate my shoe and is now biting my foot. Oh. That was Duguyamo. Screams filled the hall, and nearly everyone was panic-stricken. Feng Wu frowned. She could tell that someone was deliberately trying to scare them. That was because not only the girls were screaming. Is it that bad? Why hasn't anyone grabbed or bitten me yet? Are they faking it? Feng Sun murmured. Feng Wu shook her head. No, they're not. What? Feng Sun was bewildered. Feng Wu said, They haven't attacked you, right? Feng Sun said, That's right. Feng Wu said, If I've guessed correctly, they're only targeting the girls. Feng Sun blinked. Targeting the girls? But... Feng Wu scratched her head helplessly. I think they're all male ghosts. You can call them lewd ghosts. Feng Sun said, Seriously? There are such ghosts in this place? I didn't see any mention of them in the historical records. Feng Wu wondered if she should tell Feng Sun that she had used this trick on Ranmil earlier, and they had learned it from her. It was so hard to admit it. Chapter 1908, Attack. With a wave of her hand, little balls of fire appeared in Feng Wu's palms and floated into the air. They immediately lit up the pitch-black hall, and everyone could see around them. Ah! Someone screamed even louder. Feng Lu yelled, "Arg? Ghosts! Ghosts!" A middle-aged ghost was behind her and was licking her ear with its long, sticky tongue. Ah! Feng Lu shook from head to toe. She jumped around in fear, scared out of her wits. "How petty!" Ran Mill smirked and took out a handful of soybeans. "Die!" Whooshed out when she threw out the soybeans, the ghosts screamed. Each bean had hit a ghost. Moreover, Ran Mill had aimed specifically at their noses. When a bean shot into a ghost's nostril, the ghost froze on the spot before it turned into smoke. Their nostrils were their weakest spot. Whoosh! Ran Mill went on hitting the ghosts with her soybeans, and there were a lot more beans than ghosts. Thus, 3 minutes later, Ran Mill single-handedly killed all the ghosts. Wow, Duguyamo was the first to react, and she looked at Ran Mill in admiration. "Princess Ran, you're awesome. We would be in so much trouble if you weren't with us." Feng Lu finally quieted down and began to thank Ran Mill repeatedly as well. Ran Mill smiled good-naturedly and didn't put on any airs. Feng Lu liked her even more. "Princess, you're so awesome. None of your beans missed its target. By the way, Princess Ranmil, how did you know where to hit them?" Hearing that question, everyone turned to look at Ran Mill. Ran Mill smiled and glanced at Feng Wu, apparently very pleased with herself. "How did she know?" Ran Mill said casually, "Actually, I need to thank Princess Feng Wu for that." "Why?" Duguyamo and Feng Lu asked in unison. Ran Mill said in a seemingly light-hearted tone, "Princess Feng Wu played a trick on me earlier and had some lewd ghosts come after me. I almost couldn't get out. Luckily, I was able to figure it out at the last moment. Otherwise..." Although her tone was quite casual, the information she revealed was shocking. "What? Feng Wu played that trick on you?" "It wasn't just a trick. She tried to kill you. Those lewd ghosts are so disgusting, and you were surrounded by them. Feng Wu is so evil. I'm so glad you figured it out in the end. Just imagine what would happen if you didn't. Feng Wu, you did it on purpose, didn't you? Feng Wu, what did you try to do to Princess Ran Mill?" Chapter 1909. Offense is the best defense. After Ran Mill saved Feng Lu and Duguyamo, the two girls became her loyal fans. They hadn't taken Ran Mill's side at first, but they disliked Feng Wu so much, and not only was Ran Mill awesome, she was Feng Wu's enemy as well. Since the enemy's enemy was a friend, Duguyamo and Feng Lu immediately took Ran Mill's side. Feng Wu said with a half-smile, "So, why did I use such a trick on you? Princess Ran Mill, aren't you going to tell the whole story?" The others had expected Feng Wu to deny it, but she admitted it right away. Feng Lu stared at Feng Wu. "Feng Wu, you admitted it. You admitted that you had evil intentions toward Princess Ran Mill. You're so mean." Duguyamo pointed at Feng Wu as well. "You're such a horrible person. How could you do such a thing? Do you even have a heart?" Feng Wu acted as if Feng Lu and Duguyamo weren't there. Her gaze was fixed on Ran Mill. Ran Mill was very good at pretending to be something she wasn't, and of course she wasn't going to show her real self now. Tears welled up in her clear, bright eyes, and she spoke in a pitiful tone. "That's also what I wanted to ask. Princess Feng Wu, why did you do that to me?" That accusation immediately put Feng Wu in a very disadvantageous position. The second prince played with his fan and watched this with a half-smile on his face. Things were getting very interesting. He wanted to see how Feng Wu would get herself out of this. Ran Mill asked in an aggrieved voice, "Princess Feng Wu, do you want to kill me just because I complimented His Royal Highness?" "What?" "Just because Ran Mill complimented His Royal Highness." Ran Mill sobbed, and she looked as lovely as a fawn. She then said, "But His Royal Highness is so talented and there's no one else like him. Isn't it normal for me to compliment him?" Feng Lu and the others all nodded. "That's right. It would be very strange if someone doesn't compliment His Royal Highness. Ranmil pointed at Feng Wu and said, I know young Lord Feng has said that you're the Crown Prince's future wife and the future Empress of the Empire. Can't you even tolerate other people's compliments? Ranmil's crying face already made the others feel sympathetic toward her. Since she had saved them just then, they were naturally all on her side. Feng Lu smirked and said, Princess Ranmil, you've only pointed out half of it. The others all turned to look at her. Feng Lu stared at Feng Wu with a malicious look in her eyes. Although you only complimented His Royal Highness, she already considers you her love rival. You're more prestigious and capable than her, and you're from a powerful sect. You also have a more pleasant personality. In a word, you're better than her in every way. Of course she's jealous of you. She's worried that you'll win His Royal Highness's heart, which is why she tried to kill you. That was her motive. Feng Wu, I'm right, aren't I? All eyes were on Feng Wu now. Chapter 1910, Feng Wu's Attack. How was Feng Wu going to answer all those questions? Feng Wu felt like screaming. She really didn't have feelings for Jun Linyuan, but why did everyone think that she was so in love with him that she would kill Ranmil for it? Feng Wu met Feng Lu's eyes. No, that's not true. Feng Lu smirked. I knew you would say that, but Feng Wu, we all know you too well. Feng Wu heaved a sigh. These people just wouldn't listen to her. However, Ranmil had been attacking her nonstop and even used Feng Lu to shift public opinion to her side. Meanwhile, Ranmil herself was playing the ingenue. Feng Wu decided that she had had enough. She suddenly grinned at Ranmil. Offense was the best defense. So, Feng Wu made her move. The questions didn't seem to bother her at all. She smiled at Ranmil and asked, Princess Ranmil, according to you, you only complimented His Royal Highness, correct? Ranmil studied Feng Wu. She was rather impressed. She had almost cornered Feng Wu, but she was still able to retort. She's so level-headed. I have to be more careful around her, thought Ranmil. Ranmil became more alarmed, but she was still weeping when she said, Yes, that was all I did. Why did you make such a big deal over it? Feng Wu looked around the room. Feng Lu, Duguyamo, and Sapphiro were all fond of Jun Linyuan, so, Princess Ranmil, aren't you fond of His Royal Highness? Yes. Offense was the best defense. Feng Wu attacked, aiming at Ranmil's soft spot. Ranmil was dumbfounded. She didn't see that coming. Feng Wu was using Ranmil's trick against her. Awesome. Whoosh! Feng Lu and the others all turned to look at Ranmil. Biting her lower lip, Ranmil wanted to smack Feng Wu. Feng Wu smiled at Ranmil and repeated her question. So, Princess Ranmil, are you not fond of Jun Linyuan at all? Have you never had a crush on the most talented teenager? Tell me, yes or no? Feng Wu pressed. Ranmil clenched her fists. Right now, all eyes were on her. If she said no, Feng Wu would definitely force her to swear it. That way, she wouldn't have any chance in the future. But if she said yes, she would be contradicting herself. She had just accused Feng Wu of being unreasonably jealous. But what if she had a reason to be jealous? Feng Wu's question put Ranmil in a very difficult position. The second prince was genuinely amazed. That was awesome. Feng Wu had turned things around with just one question. Not only had she cornered Ranmil, there was also a high chance that she could shatter Ranmil's mask. How incredible! Feng Wu couldn't care less about the second prince. She kept her gaze on Ranmil. Princess Ranmil, you're not in love with His Royal Highness, are you? Feng Lu frowned. Chapter 1911, Zhua Qingwan's Match. From the very start, Ranmil had pretended to be someone who kept her distance from Jun Linyuan. If she admitted that she was fond of Jun Linyuan now, it would make her a hypocrite, and the others would know that she had been acting the whole time. No, I'm not. Ranmil insisted. His Royal Highness is indeed a talented person, but he's not the only man in the world. Why must I be in love with him? Whereas you, Feng Wu, are jealous of everyone when you may not be His Royal Highness's future wife after all. Ranmil wanted to change the subject, But Feng Wu smiled at her. Are you really not in love with His Royal Highness, or are you just saying it? I'm not in love with him. Oh, really? In that case, how about you make an oath? Swear that you'll never be in love with Jun Linyuan, and if you marry him one day, you and the entire Sinal grassland will be annihilated by heavenly thunder. Make that oath now. Ranmil glared at Feng Wu. Why should I? Feng Wu said, aren't you trying to prove that you're not fond of Jun Linyuan? Didn't you just accuse me of being unreasonably jealous? Make that oath, and I'll admit that I was unreasonably jealous. How about that? Ranmil glared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu glared back at her. It seemed that a battle was going to start at any moment. Just then cracked the fireballs released by Feng Wu were suddenly extinguished. The hall became pitch dark once more. Everyone had been watching the bickering between Feng Wu and Ranmil, and many of them panicked when the sudden darkness fell upon them. What's going on? What now? I don't want to see those lewd ghosts anymore. Feng Lu and Duguyamo were very nervous. Ranmil let out a breath of relief. Feng Wu might seem weak, but when she became serious, she could be very frightening. Clap, clap, clap. They heard someone clapping. Someone said in a teasing tone, not bad. Not bad at all. That was very interesting. The mysterious voice came from above them, but it seemed to resound in their heads as well. Who's there? Who on earth are you? Come out. Stop trying to scare us. Everyone was nervous, alarmed, and a little panic-stricken. Who am I? A giant face suddenly emerged from the high ceiling above their heads. It was so big that it almost covered the entire ceiling. Everyone jumped. Ranmil cried out, are you the legendary Black Robe Ghost King? The Black Robe Ghost King? He's one of the 3 Ghost Kings, isn't he? It said that one can get the seed of the spirit source if they receive the recognition of all 3 Ghost Kings. Are you one of them? Immediately, everyone's eyes lit up. The seed of the spirit source. It could raise one's cultivation level by an entire stage. What did that mean? Take Feng Wu, for example. She was a level 7 spiritual elder now. If she obtained the seed, she could rise directly to a level 7 spiritual lord. Once that happened, she would be almost at the same level as Zhuo Qingluan. Chapter 1912, Black Robe Ghost King. Feng Wu clenched her fists. She had to have the seed of the spirit source, but she wasn't the only one. Ranmil wanted it as well. You all want the seed of the spirit source, but it's not that easy. The giant face on the ceiling grinned maliciously. Everyone clenched their fists and looked up at the Black Robe Ghost King. However, the seed of the spirit source does exist, and all of you have a chance to get it. After a pause, the Ghost King glanced at each of them in turn. The look in his eyes was cold, intimidating, and grim. Somehow, when the Ghost King looked at Feng Wu, she felt as if a giant hand had gripped her heart and squeezed. She could clearly sense the hostility the Ghost King held toward her. Oh no. Feng Wu had a bad feeling. She was right. The Ghost King smirked and said, it won't be an easy thing to do, because you'll need the recognition of all 3 Ghost Kings. Otherwise, you'll never find it, no matter how capable you are. And I'm the Black Robe Ghost King, one of the 3 Ghost Kings. If you want my recognition, it's very easy. There are 7 levels in Universe Hall, and this is the first level. What you need to do is climb to the 7th floor. Someone mumbled in the crowd, isn't that a very easy thing to do? Hearing that, you fool, the Black Robe Ghost King smirked. You'll see once you start climbing. It's anything but easy. Really? The second prince looked to the right, where a staircase led to the upper floors. Just then, the Ghost King smirked, and the sound gave the others the creeps. Involuntarily, everyone turned to look at the Ghost King. The Ghost King looked at each person in turn and suddenly announced, there are 14 of you here, and that staircase will only allow 7 people to pass. What do you mean? Feng Sun recognized the ill intent in those words. He frowned and narrowed his eyes. He was quite sharp at sensing danger. The Ghost King glanced at Feng Sun and grinned. It means that you'll have a captain, who will be given the right to choose 6 team members. The Ghost King stared at Feng Sun with a look of satisfaction on his face and thought, do you think I'll make you turn on each other? No, I'll just show you what it feels like to be abandoned. Wow, not many people panicked when they heard those words. 7 out of 14. That was to say, 7 of them would be eliminated. So, what will happen to the 7 people who aren't picked? Feng Yuan asked, gritting his teeth. All the members of the Feng family were in danger of being eliminated. Because it concerned his own interests, Feng Yuan asked the Ghost King the question despite his fear. Chapter 1913. Luck versus Survival. That was also what the others wanted to know, so they all nervously looked up at the black-robed Ghost King. What will happen to the ones who aren't picked? The Ghost King looked like he had heard something very amusing when he said, well, it's very likely that they'll die. Die? Everyone's eyes widened. They had thought that the worst that would happen was that they would lose the chance of finding the seed of the spirit source, but as it turned out, there was a high possibility that they would die. Hey, kids, don't panic just yet. I said very likely, which means that there's a chance that you won't die. Despite the intimidating and creepy air the black-robed Ghost King gave off, he somehow also had a coquettish side. But none of them noticed, since death hovered above their heads like a dark cloud, as if it could snatch them up at any moment. What do you mean by very likely? Why are we going to die? What are the rules? What should we do to stay alive? Feng Yuan, Feng Lu, and Duguyamo all cried out and asked questions. Other Ghost Kings would have gotten impatient by now, but this Ghost King was quite talkative, for he hadn't spoken to anyone in a very long time. The rules are very straightforward, the Ghost King said cheerfully. The captain will choose 6 people to form a 7-member team. They can then climb those stairs, clear the obstacles, and reach the destination. Of course, they'll have to work hard to get through the trials. The Ghost King blinked, which looked rather eerie. The remaining 7 people can either wait for their deaths or form a team of their own. I have a name for that team already, Survival. What should that team do then? Feng Yuan had a bad feeling. He knew that he was going to be a member of that team. The black-robed Ghost King smirked. What should they do? Challenge the first team, obviously. Challenge the first team? The black-robed Ghost King didn't like the confused looks on their faces. You're all so stupid. You can't understand anything unless I show it to you. So stupid. As he spoke, he flipped his wide sleeves. Instantly that thumped at the entire universe hall shook so violently that they couldn't stand still. They all held onto things to steady themselves. The scene they saw after the turbulence shocked them all. What a scene! The hall was cut into half. And it was done very skillfully. The hall was split into 2 equal halves. Only the top floor was intact, and the lower 6 floors were all split. If one were to call the 2 sides the Chosen Hall and the Survival Hall. The 2 halls were only connected at the top level. They still didn't fully understand what was going on, so they turned their nervous gazes to the black-robed Ghost King. The Ghost King snorted. Chapter 1914. You're the captain. Isn't it obvious enough? Once you're divided into 2 teams, the chosen team will walk the chosen path, and the survival team the survival path. Are the 2 teams different? Feng Yuan asked nervously. The others were equally nervous. Of course they are. The black-robed Ghost King was very frank. Why is it called the chosen team? It's like the name suggests, it's the chosen one. The trials on the 1st to the 7th floors will be difficult for the chosen team. As for the survival team. He paused for effect. Feng Yuan asked eagerly, what about the survival team? How difficult will the trials be? The Ghost King chuckled. The survival team? It'll be hell mode, at least. Why? Feng Yuan grew anxious. The abandoned ones are already weak. Why are the trials harder for them? They'll be killed. That's correct. No prize, unfortunately, said the Ghost King cheerfully. Everyone stared at the Ghost King in astonishment. The Ghost King said matter-of-factly, "Why do you think it's called the survival team? Why do you think that the members are likely to die? Because it's an impossible mission for them. 7 out of 14. So, that was 1 out of 2, a 50% chance. That wasn't a high probability at all." The Ghost King smiled as he studied the panic-stricken faces. "What are the chances that the members of the survival team will get to the end?" Fong Iran asked gingerly. The Ghost King was quite patient. He rubbed his chin, thought for a while, and said slowly, "For as long as I can remember, the survival team has never succeeded." Dash. Everyone drew in their breaths. "What? Never? That's not very likely. That's die for sure. That means that if we're not in the chosen team, not only won't we get the seed of the spirit source, we'll also die." Many people panicked. What should they do now? Sapphiro and the others were all very anxious. "May I ask who the captain of the chosen team will be?" Ran Mill was as innocent as ever as she beamed at the Ghost King. It was as if what he said hadn't affected her at all. The Ghost King looked down at Ran Mill in a condescending manner, but his tone was much milder. "There's no strict criteria for that. I'll pick whomever I like for the job." Everyone grew excited. They were about to fawn on the Ghost King, when he spoke again. "Kiddo, you single-handedly killed a small group of my soldiers. That was impressive, and I should reward you for that. You're pretty, approachable, and capable, and you're a good physician as well. What a treasure. You'll be the captain." Chapter 1915. Princess Feng Wu should be the one. You'll be the captain. Whoosh, after those words, a bright beam of light shone down from above onto Ran Mill. A shiny headband appeared on her forehead, and the words on it read, "Chosen Captain." Already? That was so quick. The others looked from the black-robed Ghost King to Ran Mill. The Ghost King found the scared looks on their faces most amusing. He guffawed and said, "It's your game from now on. Kids, have fun." With a whoosh, the giant face on the ceiling disappeared. The hall also lit up. Everyone could see each other's faces now. "Sister." Sapphiro was the first to react. Before Ran Mill could say a word, Sapphiro rushed to her side, took her hand, and said excitedly, "Sister. Sister. Congratulations. I knew it. You're the most outstanding one of them all. You deserve to be made the captain. I guessed right." Sapphiro held Ran Mill's hand and winked at her. "I'm your own sister. You'll pick me, right?" When there were outsiders around, the two sisters looked like best friends, but they both knew what the other really was like. Sapphiro was sure that if Ran Mill still wanted to look like the pure and kind princess that she pretended to be, she had to choose her. As expected, Ran Mill said shyly, "Why am I the captain? I don't know anything." Everyone now realized what had happened. Ran Mill was the captain now. The black-robed Ghost King had said that the captain would be the one to decide who would be in the team. And now, it was time to fawn on the princess. Feng Lu was the first one to reach Ran Mill, and she said, "Princess, please pick me. I've always been on your side. I promise that I'll do well." Before Ran Mill could reply, Duguyama was there as well. Princess, please pick me. I'll give you anything you want. Please pick me." Immediately, nearly all of them surrounded Ran Mill and pleaded. Ran Mill looked shy and she waved her hands. I shouldn't be the captain. I'm not worthy enough." Feng Lu said, "Why shouldn't you be? You're the prettiest, kindest, and most lovely girl of us all." Duguyama said, "That's right. Not only that, you're also the most capable one of us all. Didn't the Ghost King say it just then? You single-handedly saved us all." "Well, it's not like that." Ran Mill waved her hands. "It shouldn't be me. I should give the role of captain away." "Give it away." Feng Lu and Duguyama's eyes lit up. "Princess, who do you want to give it to?" Ran Mill looked gingerly at Feng Wu and smiled wryly. "Princess Feng Wu should be the one. Chapter 1916, Show Off. What? Feng Lu and Duguyamo didn't like the sound of that at all. Feng Wu frowned a little. This Renmil, she was such a show-off. How interesting. Feng Sun frowned too. He didn't know why he frowned, but he just knew that there was something wrong with what Ranmil said. At the same time, Feng Lu asked, Princess, why do you want to give it to Feng Wu? Why? Ranmil said gingerly, because Princess Feng Wu is the future wife of His Royal Highness, which means that His Royal Highness sees something in her. She's supposed to be the best girl here? No, I mean she's supposed to be the best girl on this continent. That's why she should be the captain. Feng Wu gave Ranmil a half-smile. Awesome. The princess had just taken revenge for what Feng Wu said about her earlier. She used the opportunity to make Feng Wu the target to be humiliated by Feng Lu and Duguyamo when she herself got to play the nice person. She didn't need to say anything, and the others would do it for her. Interesting. Very interesting. Feng Lu and Duguyamo went on ingratiating themselves with Ranmil. Of course you're worthy. You're the best. You're the true match of the crown prince, and Feng Wu is nothing. His Royal Highness has never acknowledged her. They went on disparaging Feng Wu and lavishing praise on Ranmil. Feng Sun smacked his head. He finally figured it out. Why was he upset? Because Ranmil was so fake. Renmil, this is who you are. I used to think you were so innocent. You're such a hypocrite, thought Feng Sun. He glared at Ranmil. Are you done? That immediately silenced everyone. Feng Sun smirked. The Black Robe Ghost King made you the captain, so be it. Stop acting already. You'll only disgust Feng Wu. I know what you're doing. Ranmil's stomach lurched. Shit. She had deliberately made Feng Lu and Duguyamo say those things while she played the part of the innocent bunny. However, she had overdone it, and Feng Sun was now suspicious of her. No doubt Ranmil's ultimate target was Jun Linyuan, but to get him, she had to get Feng Sun first. Ranmil smiled bitterly and said, Young Lord Feng, you're mistaken. I really didn't mean it. I genuinely want Princess Feng Wu to be the captain. Feng Sun frowned and wanted to say something else. Ranmil cajoled Feng Sun in a soft, gentle voice. All right. If you don't like it, I won't say another word. Is that okay? Although I don't feel that I'm worthy of this position, if I keep declining it, young Lord Feng will be even more misled. So, I guess I'm the captain. The others all nodded. Ranmil said, but it's so hard to pick the 6 members. Please don't hate me if you're not picked. I'm not doing it willingly. Hearing this, the others all said that they understood and looked eagerly at her. Chapter 1917, Touch and Go. Ranmil smiled bitterly. Obviously, the first one will be Sapphiro, my sister. Please don't be mad at me. No, of course not. There were 6 places. Of course she needed to give one to her own sister. The second will be. She looked around in a seemingly troubled manner before her gaze landed on Master Ju. Master Ju is a very capable man and my good friend. I have to pick him. Yes, Master Ju was indeed very capable. The others didn't like it, but they managed not to say anything. Seeing that there were only 4 places left, Feng Lu and the others began to worry. Ranmil then looked at the second prince. She smiled and said, Your Royal Highness, you are as prestigious as you are capable. I wonder if you would like to be on my team? Immediately, everyone looked at him. After all, he was the second son of Emperor Wu, and Empress Dugu was his mother. Therefore, Ranmil had to show him respect. The second prince. Feng Lu and the others didn't like it, but they couldn't say anything. The second prince smiled. Actually, he had always been convinced that he was the most talented teenager, second only to Jun Linyuan. Thus, he had thought that the Ghost King would choose him as the captain. It had never occurred to him that Ranmil would be chosen first. Who would choose to die if they had the choice to live? So, the second prince suppressed his resentment, smiled a little, and nodded at Ranmil. That was a yes. The others grew uneasy. Ranmil, Sapphiro, Master Ju, and the seventh prince. For out of the 7 places were gone, and there were only 3 left. Who would Ranmil give those 3 to? Those chosen would owe Ranmil their lives. Ranmil smiled and looked at Feng Wu. Miss Feng Wu, will you join my team? Many drew in their breaths. What happened to Ranmil? Why would she choose Feng Wu? Wouldn't it be nice if they just let her die here? Both Feng Lu and Duguyamo stared at Ranmil in disbelief. At the same time, Ranmil smiled at Feng Wu, looking as innocent and naive as ever. Feng Wu smiled back at her. One could almost feel the sparks between them that were ready to explode at any moment. The air seemed to freeze, and no one said a word as they looked at the 2 girls, who were at loggerheads. Ranmil was very pleased with herself, because she was doing everything above board. Since Feng Wu had tricked her and forced her hand, she was going to give Feng Wu that chance and see what she would do. If Feng Wu said yes, she would be accused of being shameless. If Feng Wu said no, she was choosing to die herself, and Ranmil would have nothing to do with it. Ranmil smiled brightly. Feng Wu's smile grew wider as well. What if I say no? Feng Wu spoke unhurriedly. Ranmil put on a surprised face and said sincerely, Princess Feng Wu, the Ghost King just said. Chapter 1918. Ranmil is astonished. This is your only chance to get out of here alive. Why would you turn it down? No. Feng Wu smiled. Thank you, Princess, for your kindness, but the Ghost King doesn't get to decide which path is the right one. Ranmil feigned a confused look. What do you mean? Feng Wu smiled confidently. I'll decide which path is the right one. With her hair and the lower hem of her clothes dancing in the wind, Feng Wu looked as splendid as a goddess. That was how confident she was. All eyes were on her now. Feng Wu, you've chosen death yourself. Good, thought Ranmil. She rejoiced inwardly, but she still feigned a sorry tone. Princess Feng Wu, if that's your choice, I'll have to respect it. Feng Lu and Feng Iran found Feng Wu's choice idiotic. What kind of person would choose death over life? Her pride will get her killed. All the better. We'll have a chance now, Feng Lu told Duguyamo with a smile. Feng Wu heard those words, but she ignored them. Ranmil was secretly over the moon and found the black-robed Ghost King her lucky star. She thought that she could use the chance to drive a wedge between Feng Wu and Feng Sun. Ranmil smiled sincerely at Feng Sun. Young Lord Feng, would you like to join the team? She was convinced that Feng Sun would join her, because any normal person would. Moreover, she had been fawning on the young lord on their way here and had become friends with him, which was why she was so confident. However, Feng Sun's reply felt like a slap to her face. Why should I join your team? Feng Sun snorted. I'll go where Xiao Wu goes. Ranmil was baffled. She had expected that Feng Wu would refuse, but Feng Sun, why would he turn her down? The smile froze on Ranmil's face. Feng Sun couldn't care less about how she felt. He stood by Feng Wu's side and said, we're the survival team. Join us if you want. You have to believe that we'll lead you out of this hall and become the winner in the end. The crowd was speechless. The corner of Ranmil's mouth twitched. She didn't know that Feng Sun would be so loyal to Feng Wu, and she realized that all her efforts had gone to waste. She clenched her fists in her sleeves. If you want to die with Feng Wu, go ahead. You're not Jun Linyuan's only friend, thought Ranmil. Young Lord Xian, Ranmil smiled at Xian Yi. However, before she could say anything, Xian Yi moved behind Feng Sun with his arms crossed, and became a member of the survival team. The smile froze on Ranmil's face again. After Feng Sun, Xian Yi had humiliated her as well. Ranmil was so mad that she thought she was going to lose her mind. Why were Jun Linyuan's friends so annoying? However, you're not the only help I can find, thought Ranmil. Your Royal Highness. Ranmil then turned to the 7th prince. Chapter 1919, Final Choice. The 7th prince had yet to recover from his astonishment. Ever since he learned of the relationship between Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan, The seventh prince had been in a trance-like state. However, Ranmil's voice woke him up immediately. What was that? The seventh prince looked at Ranmil in bewilderment. Ranmil didn't know what to say. Jun Linyuan was also a prince of the Junwo Empire and liked to follow Jun Linyuan around. Naturally, Ranmil would want to please him. Ranmil asked with a smile, "Your Royal Highness, would you like to join my team?" The seventh prince looked at Ranmil in bewilderment. Instead of answering her question, he asked, "What about Feng Wu? Is my goddess in your team?" Ranmil's face froze again. To save a precious place, Feng Lu said loudly, "No, Feng Wu gave up the opportunity. She's in the survival team." The seventh prince ignored the name of the team and said solemnly, "I'll be wherever my goddess is." "Where's that team?" Looking up, he saw Feng Wu and the others, and he quickly ran up to them and stood at the end of the line. Ranmil's face went livid. After the humiliation she received from Feng Sun, Xian Yi and the seventh prince had done the same. Even Ranmil couldn't remain unaffected. The second prince stared at the seventh prince and was equally displeased. The two of them had the same mother, but his younger brother only wanted to hang out with Jun Linyuan and Feng Wu. "Linyuan, come over here," the second prince bellowed. Jun Linyuan shook his head. "No. This is where I want to be." The second prince gritted his teeth. "Are you an idiot? That path will only get you killed. Join my side, and you'll live." The seventh prince was perplexed. What? Ranmil wanted to win the second prince to her side, so she said patiently, "The Black Robe Ghost King said earlier that the chosen team will undergo trials at the difficult level, while the survival team will go through hell mode. Your Royal Highness, you're too important to take such risks. Please come with us." "I see." Jun Linyuan let out a breath of relief. Ranmil nodded and smiled. It seemed that the seventh prince would be on her side after all. But Ranmil was still smiling when Jun Linyuan rested his hands on his waist and raised his chin proudly. "You have no idea how awesome my goddess is. With her on my team, no trial will ever be a problem for us." Ranmil was so embarrassed, she felt like she had been slapped again. She turned to look at the second prince. The second prince was equally frustrated and wanted to give the seventh prince a good spanking. However, Jun Linyuan had been an unruly child since he was little, and there was nothing the second prince could do. If he could help it, he wouldn't have allowed his young brother to run after Jun Linyuan all the time. Ranmil was even more furious when she saw that the second prince couldn't do anything about the seventh prince. "So, Feng Wu, this is why you're so arrogant. So many people are on your side," thought Ranmil, her chest heaving with rage. Chapter 1920. I love him more than my own life. Right now, the members of the chosen team included Ranmil, Sephiroth, Master Ju, and the second prince. Feng Wu's survival team included herself, Feng Sun, Xian Yi, and the seventh prince. In terms of absolute capability, Feng Wu's team wasn't necessarily inferior. There are 3 places left. Ranmil looked around and narrowed her eyes. The remaining candidates were Feng Lu, Feng Iran, Feng Sang, Dugu Yamo, Dugu Mingxi, and the unconscious Jun Wuxia. She didn't like any of them, but to annoy Feng Wu. Ranmil chuckled. "Of the 6 of you, Princess Jun Wuxia is still unconscious, so she should stay with her brother. As for the last 2 places..." She smiled. "Feng Lu, you and your siblings are Princess Feng Wu's family, so I'm sure that you'll want to stay with her. In that case, Dugu Mingxi and Dugu Yamo, you're with me." Hearing that, Feng Lu panicked. No, they didn't want to stay with Feng Wu at all. Was Ranmil blind? Hadn't she realized how much they disliked Feng Wu? Feng Lu was about to say something, but Dugu Mingxi and Dugu Yamo had walked up to Ranmil and were expressing their gratitude. "Thank you, Princess, for choosing us. We'll do whatever we can to help you get up those stairs. My family is grateful for this as well." Princess. Feng Lu rushed over to Ranmil's side and grabbed her hand. She looked as if she was going to lose her mind as she yelled, "Princess, we want to stay with you as well. We're not close to Feng Wu at all. Please choose me. Please. Ranmil frowned and said, but I don't have any places left. I can't. Mingxi, help me. Please help me. Feng Lu grabbed Dugumingxi's hands and wrapped herself around him. Dugumingxi felt conflicted. Feng Lu was the woman he loved, so how could he bring himself to? Sister, as usual, Dugumingxi turned to his sister for help. Dugu Yamo was infuriated. Dugumingxi, you're not giving away your place? She glared at Dugumingxi. Dugumingxi was speechless. He didn't want to give up his own place. He just thought that what if his sister? Dugu Yamo had no idea what Dugumingxi was thinking at the moment. If she did, she would probably pass out. Dugu Yamo asked Feng Lu, don't you love Mingxi? Yes, I do. I love him more than my own life. Feng Lu said eagerly. Dugu Yamo said, if that's the case, why are you troubling him? If he swaps places with you, he'll die. Since you love him so much, why don't you let him go? I'm begging you. Feng Lu was dumbfounded. Let Dugumingxi go? Then what about her? All of a sudden, whoosh. Feng Lu took out a dagger from her sleeve and cut her own wrist open. Arg. Lu. Dugumingxi pulled Feng Lu into his arms and was almost in tears. Lu, why are you doing this? Lu. Chapter 1921, Quarrel. Mingxi. Feng Lu held Dugumingxi's handsome face in her hands and burst into tears. Mingxi, I don't want to be parted from you. The survival team has the young lords and the 7th prince, and we may not lose. I can stay with this team, but if we're in 2 different teams, one of us is going to win, and the other is bound to lose. I don't care if I die. I just want to be with you, Mingxi. Blood ran down Feng Lu's wrist as she cried. Hearing this, Feng Wu smiled a little. Feng Lu was so full of lies that Dugumingxi was probably the only one who still believed her. As expected, Dugumingxi turned around and looked at Dugu Yamo with teary eyes. Sister, please let us stay together. Please give your place to Lu. Dugu Yamo was astonished. Dugumingxi held Feng Lu in his arms and knelt down, crying so hard that he trembled. Sister, please. Please give your place to Lu. I'm begging you. Dugu Yamo was speechless. That was probably the most hurtful thing she had ever heard. Even Feng Wu felt sorry for Dugu Yamo. All she wanted was to protect her brother, but her brother was basically asking her to die for his woman. Dugumingxi, you. Dugu Yamo stared at Dugumingxi, so angry that she didn't know what to say. When the others weren't looking, Ranmil's eyes glinted coldly. She loved to see how people showed their true selves in a moment like this. How wonderful! But she was forced to play this innocent girl in front of other people, which was very tiresome. Crack! Just then, the ground started to crack open. Master Ju frowned and reminded them in a cold voice, we don't have much time left. Ranmil nodded and told Feng Lu, if you don't want to be on Feng Wu's team, of course we can take you, but the places are limited. How about this? You and Dugu Yamo will draw lots, and the winner will be with us. Before they could say anything, Ranmil glanced at Sapphiro. She wouldn't do such petty things, because that would only be belittling herself. Sapphiro took the hint, turned around, and soon produced 2 bamboo sticks of different lengths. She told Dugu Yamo and Feng Lu, pick one. The one with the longer stick can be on our team. The lucky draw would probably decide who lived and who died. Dugu Yamo hesitated. Feng Lu and Dugumingxi looked at each other and immediately walked up to Sapphiro. Sister, I'll do it for you. Dugumingxi reached out. No, let me. But Dugumingxi had picked the stick before Dugu Yamo could finish her sentence. Now, let's see what you got. Sapphiro was very curious. Sister, here's your stick. Dugumingxi showed it to Dugu Yamo. With one look, they could tell who had picked the longer stick. It was Feng Lu. Chapter 1922, You Tampered with It. Dugu Yamo's scream filled the hall. She stared at the short stick in her hand and looked like she had been struck by lightning. This meant that she had to join the survival team. Ha ha ha. Feng Lu almost jumped to her feet. She had picked the longer stick. I'm going to live. Ha, Mingxi I won. We can be together. Even if we die, we'll die together. Yes. Dugu Mingxi held Feng Lu in excitement. Dugu Yamo had yet to recover from her astonishment. She stared at the short stick in her hand and saw that it seemed to have been snapped. She then recalled how Dugu Mingxi had rushed out to do it for her and what he said earlier. She immediately realized what had happened and glared at Dugu Mingxi. It was you. You snapped my stick, didn't you? You tampered with it. Dugu Mingxi looked dumbfounded. Sister, I didn't. Dugu Yamo tried to smack Dugu Mingxi. You bastard. I'm gonna kill you. You're going to kill your own sister for an outsider. I've been so good to you since we were little, and this is how you repay me. You dirty swine. Dugu Mingxi said matter-of-factly, Sister, how can you say that? I did no such thing. But Dugu Yamo was on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and she wouldn't listen to him. She lashed out at him, looking as if she wanted to eat him alive. They had been loving siblings only a moment ago, but now, they had become enemies. Sapphiro and Ranmil exchanged satisfied looks. It was so nice to see people torn apart. Feng Wu narrowed her eyes when she saw this. The White Fairy was right. Ranmil was an evil person and a tough enemy. That's enough. You're giving me a headache. Sapphiro threw a dirty look at them. That's set, so stop arguing. They cheated. This is cheating. Dugu Yamo wouldn't have it and went on screaming. Sapphiro snapped. Did you see it with your own eyes? Do you have any proof? Dugu Yamo said, I. Sapphiro said, if not, you're slandering them. Miss Dugu. Sapphiro glanced at Feng Wu's team and suddenly chuckled. Look, you have some very capable people there. There's young Lord Feng, young Lord Xian, and the 7th Prince. They're all spiritual lords. Maybe your team will win in the end. Haha. Dugu Yamo was almost in tears. How's that possible? The survival team has never won before. Sapphiro said, you may become the first winning survival team, and who knows? Haha. Princess. She wanted to beg Ranmil for help, but Ranmil only gave her a there's nothing I can do look. Just then crack a wall suddenly rose in the center of the hall and surged all the way up. It was like a dark shadow. Chapter 1923, Xiao Wu, help me. When they finally realized what was happening, a black wall had appeared between the two teams. It completely separated the two teams. The wall rose so fast that Dugu Yamo didn't even have time to see the satisfied smile on Feng Lu's face. Everything suddenly quieted down. Finally, those annoying people are finally gone. I'm so happy. Feng Sun laughed when he saw that the other team was blocked by the wall. Feng Wu pressed her ear to the wall and listened carefully. No matter how hard she listened, she couldn't hear anything. It was as if there was no one on the other side. The other side should have reacted to Feng Sun's words if they heard him, but Feng Wu could hear any reaction at all. That was to say, the two teams were separated for good. Feng Sun had no idea of Feng Wu's careful observation and was genuinely very happy. Xiao Wu, those annoying people are finally gone. We're finally on our own. Aren't you happy? Feng Wu looked at him helplessly. You really don't feel any pressure at all, do you? Feng Sun looked at Feng Wu and asked, what pressure? Feng Wu said, don't worry about it. How can you not feel any pressure? Dugu Yamo stepped out and yelled at Feng Wu. Didn't you hear what the Black Robe Ghost King said? We're the survival team. We're the abandoned ones. We're all going to die. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Dugu Yamo stressed again, we're going to die. We really are. I'm sure of it. Feng Wu didn't even look at her. She knew that Dugu Yamo had almost been driven crazy by her brother. Feng Sun threw a dirty look at Dugu Yamo. I don't know about you, but we're not going to die. Dugu Yamo was perplexed. Young Lord Feng, why are you so confident of that? Feng Sun said matter-of-factly, because we have Xiao Wu. Feng Wu? Dugu Yamo looked confused. What's that supposed to mean? Is she going to save us? Feng Sun found the question idiotic. Of course she is. You have no idea how awesome she is. Do you remember when we were in the treasure hall? Of course Duguyamo remembered. How could she forget? Feng Sun said, Xiao Wu wasn't there at the time, so I asked for her help in my head. You saw how it turned out. I was so lucky. Do you remember what I found? Duguyamo said, the purple sun sword, the blowing snow sword, and their corresponding swordplay manuals. Feng Sun gloated. That's right. All I did was ask for Xiao Wu's blessing in my head, and luck was on my side. Xiao Wu is here with us now, we're going to be very lucky. He then gave Duguyamo a contemptuous glance. Our team is going to win, and that's all you need to think about. Forget about everything else. Duguyamo smiled bitterly. Forget about everything else? How could she? She couldn't see how they were going to win. She leaned against the wall and looked like she had already lost all hope. Feng Sun was going to speak again, when Feng Wu shook her head. Enough chit-chat. Don't you know that we only have half the time of the other team to get through the trials? Chapter 1924. You Can Have My Life. Yes, that's right. Feng Sun smacked his head and went to look for the staircase. Feng Wu knew why Ranmal's team was deemed the chosen team. For instance, on their side, the staircase was right there in the open and they could just climb it, whereas for the survival team, they needed to first find the staircase that could lead them to the next level. That I and her team, Feng Wu could only depend on herself, Feng Sun and Xian. As for Jun Linyun, she would call it a blessing if he didn't bring them even more trouble. She simply ignored Duguyamo, Feng Sang, and Feng Yiran. Just then, someone shrieked at that moment. Feng Wu turned around with a frown and saw that Feng Sang was standing by the wall with a dagger over her head. That it had a very thin blade. The dagger was about 10 centimeters long and glinted faintly in the dim light. That it was quite creepy. Where did that come from? Feng Wu frowned and had a bad feeling that why then, Feng Sun and the others had come back. Xiao Wu, we've searched everywhere. There are no stairs. Feng Wu looked at Xian Yin. Xian Yi silently shook his head as well. Feng Wu then turned to Jun Linyun. Jun Linyun shook his head. There's nothing, my goddess. Is it possible that there are no stairs at all? Feng Yiran spoke first. Stop trying. You won't find anything. His face was full of despair as he leaned against the wall. He had given up. Everyone looked at him. Feng Yiran smiled bitterly. Didn't you notice? The hall was split in half, and the chosen team was on the side with the stairs. We have nothing on our side. How are we going to find it? Feng Yiran's words silenced everyone. Yes, how were they supposed to find something that wasn't there? Do you have no hope at all? Feng Sun frowned. Feng Sang smiled wryly. Didn't we lose all hope the moment we were assigned to this team? So, you're going to give up just like that? Feng Wu glanced at them. Duguyamo smirked. Or what? Are you going to get us out of here? Feng Sun stared at her. What's with that attitude? Duguyamo was half crazy by then, and she stared back at the young lord. What attitude? We're going to die. Why should I care? We're going to die? Feng Wu was as calm as usual. Are you going to save us all? You can't be that delusional. Duguyamo guffawed. What if I can? Feng Wu glanced at her. If you can. Duguyamo cut her wrist open with a dagger. Blood splashed everywhere. That must hurt a lot. Feng Sang frowned. Duguyamo stared at Feng Wu, moved closer, and whispered, if you can get me out of here, I swear that my life is yours from now on. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.